Hello, everyone. You're watching Inside the Americas. Coming up, top-level resignations in Peru after a scandal broke saying some 500 officials got the COVID vaccine in secret before it officially came out. In the U.S., just 7 Republican senators voted to convict Donald Trump in his historic second impeachment trial. Now several of them are facing repercussions at home. And as another winter storm blows across America, we'll take a look at the southern state of Texas, where millions were left without power. I'm Jeannie Godula. We'll start first in Peru, where both the country's foreign minister and health minister have resigned. They're some of the almost 500 Peruvian officials who secretly received the COVID-19 vaccine before it was officially rolled out. The scandal has generated outrage in a country already hit with mass inequality. Emerald Maxwell has more now on the officials who reportedly received the shot weeks and even months before healthcare workers.
The vaccines were supposed to go to Peruvian healthcare workers as a priority. Instead, nearly 500 top officials, including the former foreign minister seen here, got the COVID-19 shot first, in secret, weeks or months before the official rollout began at the start of February.
I'm with the President of the Council of Ministers to reiterate our anger and disappointment at learning that 487 people, many public officials among them, took advantage of their position to be immunized.
Interim President Francisco Sagasti, who received the jab publicly as the immunization program launched, said he was turning over the list of people to prosecutors. It includes the former foreign and health ministers who resigned over the scandal and former President Martin Vizcarra. He confirmed that he and 2 family members were vaccinated before he was impeached in November over an unrelated corruption allegation, but he claimed that it was as part of a trial of the Chinese Sinopharm vaccine in October.
This is the clinic trials vaccination card. I ask Peruvians to accept my sincere apology for not having informed them at the time.
The university leading the trial, though, has denied Vizcarra had been a volunteer. While leaders in some other countries made a public display of getting vaccinated to encourage citizens, the secrecy surrounding this case has sparked outrage in a country which has recorded more than 43,700 deaths from COVID-19, and that's run out of hospital beds and oxygen for patients.
It's an ethical issue. You can't inoculate yourself and your family and a few public officials when there are people on the front line, doctors, who have died.
It's bad in the sense that they do things secretly. They're not transparent, so the people no longer trust them. When will we trust them? Never again.
Former Health Minister Pilar Mazzetti's confession came just days after a press conference where she assured that she would be immunized only after everyone working in the system is vaccinated. Peru is currently in the midst of an election campaign for April polls.
Mexico has begun vaccinating senior citizens across the country. Most of that rollout has been in the country's poorest communities, remote rural areas, but also in a few corners of the capital as well. Hundreds of Mexicans over 60 lined up before dawn for the chance to get the vaccine. The country wants to apply all 860,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine in a week to 10 days, but travel delays due to bad weather have already slowed things down. Mexico started vaccinating health workers in mid-December. Next now to the U.S., where in the aftermath of the impeachment trial, one thing is clear: Donald Trump still has a very firm grip on Republicans. Just 7 Republican senators voted to convict the former president, and now several of them are facing censure by party officials in their home states. Catherine Viette explains.
These 3 senators aren't up for re-election until 2026, so a vote to convict could seem less of a political risk. But now, Maine's Susan Collins and Nebraska's Ben Sasse are facing possible censure from the Republican Party in their home states. The Louisiana GOP has already censured Senator Bill Cassidy. Despite the political fallout, Cassidy says he has no regrets.
I had the privilege of having the facts before me and being able to spend several days deeply going into those facts. People want to trust. They want to trust their leaders. They want people to be held accountable. Now, I'm attempting to hold President Trump accountable.
The senator who could have the most to lose for voting to convict, Lisa Murkowski. She's the only one up for re-election in 2022. And Donald Trump has vowed to support primary challengers to congressional Republicans who voted against him. With 87% of Republican voters still behind the former president, it's clear Trump retains a tight grip on the GOP.
Being tasked with judging the president, the leader of my own party, would be the most difficult decision I have ever faced.
Former presidential candidate and Utah Senator Mitt Romney was the only Republican to vote to convict in Trump's first impeachment trial in February 2020. His actions have made him a frequent target of Trump supporters' anger and outrage, but that did not stop him from again voting the same way last weekend. Senators Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania and Richard Burr of North Carolina had little to lose when they cast their vote. Both men had already decided to retire and not seek re-election when their term ends in 2022. In the end, only 7 out of 43 Republican senators chose to go on record to hold Trump accountable for inciting rioters to storm the Capitol on January 6th. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell tried to have his cake and eat it too by condemning Trump's actions, but stopping short of actually voting to convict him.
President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he was in office. Didn't get away with anything yet.
McConnell's comments provoked a furious outburst from the former president, who released a statement calling McConnell a dour, sullen, unsmiling political hack and urged Republicans to turn their backs on him. Trump also announced he'll support candidates who promote his America First policies. The rift in the Republican Party showing no sign of healing anytime soon.
Also in the U.S. this week, freezing temperatures plunged much of the country into chaos. One of the areas worst hit was Texas. Now, that is not normally a place you'd associate with snow, but extreme cold there has left millions without power. Fraser Jackson reports.
For these children in Houston, a rare opportunity to play in the snow. More used to hot, humid summers, the cold snap racing across America has plunged the Lone Star State into wintry chaos, with parts of the state reaching minus 18 degrees Celsius on Sunday.
We have no water. We woke up this morning, our pipes are all frozen, and we have no water in the house. So our neighbor just got us some propane tank to try to thaw out our pipes because they're frozen. We're not used to this in Texas.
And it's not just the water that has been affected. A surge in people trying to heat their homes and the extreme cold affecting infrastructure has seen electricity companies unable to cope. Rolling blackouts have left nearly 3 million people without power. Frozen gas pipelines meant 5 million people in neighboring northern Mexico were also left without power. The deep freeze has impacted the state's COVID-19 vaccination rollout. A shipment of 400,000 doses has been delayed, and a power outage at a vaccine storage facility left health officials scrambling to find last-minute takers for 8,000 jabs. President Biden has issued an emergency declaration for Texas, paving the way for federal assistance to help state relief efforts. The cold weather is now stretching over 25 states, leaving over 150 million people living under cold weather advisories.
That winter storm coming as the U.S. remains in the grips of COVID-19. The pandemic has been particularly hard on independent workers like the iconic yellow taxi drivers in New York. With the tourist industry at a standstill and many New Yorkers just staying home, cab drivers have seen their income plummet. They now stage regular protests calling on the government to keep them alive. But many are afraid even government aid won't be enough. Yinka Oyatade reports.
What do you want? Justice! What do you want? Justice!
Instead of picking up potential clients around New York City, yellow cab drivers now regularly block traffic, demanding government aid. The pandemic is threatening their very existence. Drivers have seen their income plummet since the start of the crisis.
My earnings are actually down about 80%. I went from making maybe $1,000 a week to making maybe $200 or $300 a week.
The cabs had already been struggling to compete with ride-hailing rivals Uber and Lyft. Their rise had drastically dented the income of traditional taxis. But the crisis has made the economic pain of yellow cab drivers even worse, especially for those who have medallions, a city permit that is required to own and operate a cab. Many are drowning under the debt of the costly licenses. In 2014, its price reached a high of $1 million, though it has dropped since then. Richard's brother was struggling to pay back his debt. 2 years ago, he felt he had no way out.
I lost my brother. I'm heartbreaking. Taxi driver and the owner driver. We are hopeless. Nobody help us.
The Taxi Workers Alliance says that out of the 13,000 cabs that are licensed, less than half are running at the moment. The union is determined to sustain its call on the government to erase drivers' debts. New York's Mayor Bill de Blasio has promised to help the industry if the city is bailed out by the federal government.
We'll leave you now on a lighter note in Nicaragua, where 400 couples got married in one giant ceremony on Valentine's Day. The brides and grooms ranged from teenagers to senior citizens, saying yes in an open-air auditorium of Managua's City Hall. The couples braved the heat and the risk of contracting coronavirus to take part in that February 14th ceremony that's been organized by a local radio station since 2003. More than 10,000 couples have been married in the 18 mass weddings so far. That wraps it up for this edition. Thank you so much for watching Inside the Americas. We'll see you again next time for all the news from north to south.